Welcome back to Vibe Podcast. Today we're discussing the timeline of events in 1970 and then afterwards surrounding the death of the Isdal Woman, a topic researched for us by David Morgan. I'm joined by Charles and Angela.
Hello, Alice. I'm Charles, and I've spent years delving into the enigma of the Isdal Woman, poring over every detail of her movements, aliases, and the perplexing circumstances of her death.
And I'm Angela, an historian specializing in Norway in the early 1970s. I'm here to provide some context on the country, its society, and the local events surrounding this enduring mystery.
Thank you both of you and David for our excellent Norwegian sources. Charles, let's start at the beginning of 1970. What does our timeline reveal about the Isdal Woman's earliest known potential connections or activities?
Well, the earliest entry of interest, though not directly linked to the Isdal Woman herself, is a general SAS air hostess course from January 1, 1970. It was for women under 27 who spoke English, French, and German, and up to 100 women could have been involved. It gives us a sense of a profile that might align with her later apparent skills. It could be a lead, but we just don't know.
Stavanger, even then, was a city with international connections, particularly due to the shipping and burgeoning oil industry. So, a foreign visitor wouldn't have been entirely out of place.
Exactly, and interestingly, around February 26, there's a note about Ingeborg Weber being arrested as a spy in Germany. While not directly related to our woman, it highlights the geopolitical climate of the time, where such activities were not uncommon, which becomes very relevant to the Isdal Woman's story.
Intriguing connections right from the start. So, when do we get the first concrete evidence of the Isdal Woman's presence in Norway, or at least a documented trail?
That would be March 10, 1970, when her first coded entry in her diary begins. This period, from March 10, 1970, to June 19, 1971, is the core of the evidence period about the Isdal Woman. The log in the diary is a fascinating piece of evidence, detailing locations with single letters like L for London or Larvik, perhaps, G for Geneva or Gvarv, perhaps. It suggests extensive travel.
Travel within Norway in 1970 was certainly possible, but not always as seamless as today. The idea of someone moving between so many locations, both internationally and domestically, under different guises, would have been quite complex to manage. Especially for a lone female.
Absolutely. We see her appear in Oslo on March 20th, staying at the Hotel Viking from March 21st to 23rd. Here she uses the name Genevieve Lancia, with a date of birth of July 28, 1945, and she claims to be a secretary traveling from Brussels. A Dutch hotel maid noted she believed she spoke French.
So, she's already using an alias and moving internationally. What happens next?
From Oslo, she moves to Bergen, where she's present from March 24 to April 1. She stays at Hotel Bristol on the 24th and 25th, using the name Claudia Tielt, this time with a date of birth of July 11, 1945, and claiming to be an antiques dealer. She then moves to Hotel Scandia, where she stays until April 1, possibly due to Easter closures.
Yes, Easter in Norway. Many businesses, including hotels, would close or have reduced services for the long weekend. Moving hotels wouldn't be unusual if a hotel was shutting down for the holiday, but it adds to the disruption of her schedule. Also, we hear of her traveling via the Vinter hydrofoil, which was a popular, albeit expensive, way to travel along the coast at that time, connecting cities like Bergen and Stavanger.
Indeed, on March 29, she's observed at a tourist office in Bergen, asking for bus connections to Arjuken. Witnesses said she had a lisp and spoke both English and German badly, which contradicts other observations of her language skills. This inconsistency is one of many that plague the case. By April 1, she travels to Stavanger, then buys a train ticket to Basel in Switzerland, via Kristiansand, Hirtshals in Denmark, and Hamburg. An extensive journey, assuming she took it.
So, a rapid movement across Europe and then back to Norway again in the autumn. Charles, can you walk us through some of the other significant sightings and aliases from later in 1970?
Certainly. After more movements across Europe according to her coded log, possibly F Frankfurt, R, Rome, and later P, Paris, A, Amsterdam. She reappears in Norway in late October. On October 29, she flies from Paris to Stavanger, checking into the KNA hotel as Claudia Nielsen, date of birth April 25, 1945, from Ghent, Belgium, and working as a versieraren, or decorator. The next day, October 30, she's in Bergen at Hotel Neptune, using the name Alexia Zana Merches, date of birth November 27, 1943, from Ljubljana, also claiming to be a decorator, from Brussels. The daughter of one of the Neptune maids, Marianne, was later murdered in 1972, a grim side note in this already dark story in a similar manner to the Isdal Woman.
Yes, but back to the plot, Charles. That rapid succession of aliases and locations, often traveling between the same cities in Norway, suggests a very deliberate pattern. And the presence of a murder commission in Bergen around November 2, as reported in the newspapers, indicates a heightened state of police activity. Also, the detail about spy boss Alf Martensmeyer being in Oslo for a funeral around the same time could be significant, if only to paint a picture of who was active in high-level circles in Norway.
Exactly, Angela. The context is crucial. Then, on November 6, she's in Trondheim at the Hotel Bristol as Vera Jarl. Crucially, on the same day, two Soviet agents, Rubanov and Popov, arrive in Trondheim. While her flight lands later, the coincidence of Soviet agents and a person using multiple aliases in Norway is highly suggestive in the spy narrative, which many believe was her reason to be in Norway spying on missile testing.
That certainly adds another layer to the mystery. What about her final week or so before her body was discovered in the Isdalen?
Her final documented movements begin on November 9. She checks into the Hotel St. Svithin in Stavanger as Fenella Lork from Belgium, staying until the 18th. Although we have no hotel record for her stay, staff noted her wearing rubber boots and having wine bottles in her room, appearing somewhat drunk. She bought these rubber sailor boots in Stavanger, which would later be a key piece of evidence. Then, from November 18 to 19, she's at Hotel Rosenkrantz in Bergen as Elisabeth Lienhauer, date of birth November 27, 1945. A maid saw her with a man in her room.
She was asking for directions to the Vinmonopolet on November 19. It is Norway's state-owned liquor store monopoly. It would have been the only place to legally purchase stronger alcohol, so her seeking it out fits the cleaner's observations about the wine bottles.
On November 19, she checks into Hotel Hordarheimen in Bergen, again as Elisabeth Lienhauer, staying until the 23rd. Notice she used a Z spelling for Elizabeth, which is not European. Staff describe her as elegant, smoking long South State cigarettes, and having a strong, spicy scent. She's also seen at a goldsmith's, inquiring about silver cutlery to be shipped to Germany. Most importantly, on November 19, forestry workers report seeing her at 3 p.m. in the Isdalen Valley.
So, very close to where she was eventually found. What happens after her last hotel checkout?
On November 23, she visits Bergen Privatbank to exchange Swedish crowns, possibly using a traveler's check belonging to a man named Schulman, which later becomes significant in the police evidence. She then goes to the train station and places 2 suitcases into storage. After this, there's a significant gap of 6 days in activity until her body is discovered.